Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व जय प्रहलाद नृसिंहा जय अनंत देव प्रहलाद नृसिंहा जय अनंत देव जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव सुभद्रा माई जय सुदर्शन जय राधा माधव अष्ट सखी गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर सत हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहिए जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिका श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन जी महाराज की ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की श्री क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा मैया की जमुना माई की तुलसी महारानी की समवेत भक्त वृंद की पतित पावन पुरुषोत्तम मास की ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज ऑल ग्लोरीज टू असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्री गुरु एंड गौरंग ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं दैवीं सरस्वती व्यासं ततो जयो मुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नष्ट की। Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 11 and 12. śyāmāvadātāḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ piśaṅga-vastrāḥ su-rucaḥ su-peśasaḥ sarve catur-bāham unmiṣan-maṇi praveka-niṣkābharaṇāḥ su-varcasaḥ śyāmāvadātāḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ piśaṅga-vastrāḥ su-rucaḥ su-peśasaḥ sarve catur-bāham unmiṣan-maṇi praveka-niṣkābharaṇāḥ su-varcasaḥ śyāmāvadātāḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ piśaṅga-vastrāḥ su-rucaḥ su-peśasaḥ sarve catur-bāham unmiṣan-maṇi praveka-niṣkābharaṇāḥ su-varcasaḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ sarve catur-bāham unmiṣan-maṇi praveka-niṣkābharaṇāḥ su-varcasaḥ śyāmāvadātāḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ piśaṅga-vastrāḥ su-peśasaḥ sarve catur-bāham unmiṣan-maṇi śyāmāvadātāḥ śyata-patra-locanāḥ Word to word meaning. Śyāma, sky bluish. Avadātāḥ, glowing. śyata-patra, lotus flower. Locanāḥ, eyes. Piśaṅga, yellowish. Vastrāḥ, clothing. su-rucaḥ, greatly attractive. su-peśasaḥ, growing youthful. sarve, all of them. catuḥ, four. bāhavaḥ, hands. unmiṣan, rising luster. maṇi, pearls. praveka, superior quality. niṣka-ābharaṇāḥ, ornamental medallions. su-varcasaḥ, effulgent. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. You may repeat after me. The inhabitants of the Vaikuṇṭha planets are described as having a glowing sky-bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have four hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces, with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Purport. The inhabitants in Vaikuṇṭha Loka are all personalities with spiritual bodily features, not to be found in the material world. We can find the descriptions in the revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. Impersonal descriptions of transcendence in the scriptures indicate that the bodily features in Vaikuṇṭha Loka are never to be seen in any part of the universe. As there are different bodily features in different places of a particular planet, or as there are different bodily features between bodies in different planets, similarly, the bodily features of the inhabitants in Vaikuṇṭha Lokas are completely different from those in the material universe. For example, the four hands are distinct from the two hands in this world. Verse number 12 is very small. I will just be reciting it. Pravala Vaidurya Mrinala Varshah Parispurat Kundalam Moli Malinah Pravala Vaidurya Mrinala Varchasah Parispurat Kundalam Moli Malinah Pravala Vaidurya Mrinala Varchasah Parispurat Kundala Moli Malinah. Word by word translation. Kindly repeat. Pravala, coral. Vaidurya, a special diamond. Mrinal, celestial lotus. Varchasah, rays. Parispurat, blooming. Kundala, earring. Moli, beads. Malinah, with garlands. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion, and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. Purport. These are some inhabitants who have attained the liberation of sarupya, or possessing bodily features like those of the personality of Godhead. The Vaidurya diamond is especially meant for the personality of Godhead, but one who achieves the liberation of bodily equality with the Lord is especially favored with such diamond on his body. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Gnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-unmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano-bhishtam Sapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much for being in the Bhagavatam class. And when I first time read this verse, first time in the sense for the preparation of the class, I was just asking myself, why me? Because the description pertains to Vaikuṇṭha inhabitants. And for a struggling sadhak to talk about such things, I'm naturally totally unqualified. And that's why the best way is always to parrot out what Srila Prabhupada said and what previous acharyas have mentioned. So let us begin with just by sensitizing ourselves that what is this subject matter, because by sensitizing we understand a certain hierarchy and we become more alert, so that we approach the subject matter in a more respectful way. If you look at the bottom of the hierarchy, there are unlimited conditioned living entities who want to have an existence which is separate from Krishna, and they have a tendency to lord over the material nature. And then within that material atmosphere, there are unlimited varieties. As Srila Prabhupada says, bodily features within one planet and then within the living entities. So we have these 8.4 million different bodily features here. Some may be ghastly, some horrible, some beautiful, but the point is that there is difference. And one might be tempted to feel that, okay, everybody is four-handed, everybody is sky blue, and so everybody looks alike. But that's why the verse number 12 then further elaborates, which is about that some of them have this coral and Vaidurya diamond, etc. So again, within the best, there is good, better and best. So this never stops. The elevation of consciousness, even when one achieves transcendence, it keeps on growing. That's why when we read about, how our acharyas approach Vrindavan, so ultimately they go to Govardhan and then they go to Radhakund. So that's like the pinnacle. Even the Paramhamsas, they always aspire to reach there. So though the transcendence, like within the three features, Brahman is good, Paramatma realization better, Bhagavad Sakshatkar best. But again, within Bhagavad Sakshatkar, then you say now Shantaras, Sakhya, Madhurya, Vatsalya, etc. And then within Madhurya, again there are categories. So it never stops. It keeps on growing. So the point is that when we look at the bottom of the hierarchy, we feature there. That's our, and I'm not referring to pure devotees, but I'm talking about right now, not even we, the karmis who are there. Then the next step is mixed devotees who are administrators in terms of demigods. Even below that, people like Gandharvas and Yakshas and Charanas, etc. So they have a different bodily feature, and that variety also exists. Then you move up the ladder and you have Indra and Varun and Agni, etc. Their bodily features are different. If you go to Janalok, Tapalok, Meherlok, etc., the bodily features become more and more refined. In Satyalok, as they say, there is pure intelligence. Like between demigods and Satyalok, the realm of mind gradually gets purified. And then the desires, the material desires keep on diminishing. That's why in Taplok, etc., those sages have been performing austerities to decrease the influence of material modes on their mind. So it's like almost nil ignorance, very little passion, and a lot of goodness. So it's relatively Shuddha Sattva, if we can say. In Lord Brahma's abode, it's pure intelligence. So there, the bodily features are far more refined. I'm reminded of that pastime when the sons of Lord Brahma, the four Kumar, when they went to Vaikuṇṭha planet. And four Kumars are not ordinary entities. They can travel anywhere. So they were in Shuddha Sattva. But when they reached and had darshan of Lord Narayan, who Srila Prabhupada at many places define as Vasudev Sattva or Vishuddha Sattva, then all of a sudden their effulgence and glow before the Lord appeared highly diminished. And they were embarrassed looking at Lord Narayan's beautiful bodily features. The point being made is that the people who are described in this verse, at least they are way beyond my imagination. Because concomitant to a level of consciousness, there exists a reality. So if I am high in my consciousness, then there would be a reality where I will have higher duration of life, more happiness, etc. When I am low in my consciousness, subsequently my activities would be horrible, and therefore it will result in more sorrow, less duration of life, less happiness, etc. But when the gaze of consciousness fixes at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, it is at that time that there is a leap jump which one experiences in one's consciousness. And that is something that never stops amazing me. I mean, in this country, in India, there are millions and millions of families who worship Lord Krishna, but hardly any of them become a devotee. They have been doing it since ages. It's like, it's a routine, it's a ritual. And they have komal shraddha, little faith is there. But why do they not become devotees? What stops them? If you look closely, it happens because they don't take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. And unless and until we do that, it is a very circuitous and very difficult path. There is no way to describe that how the whole thing becomes, how does it become easy? Because when on the instruction of pure devotees of Lord Chaitanya we chant the holy names, the sattvic vikaras pop up, they appear, and that becomes a cause and effect relationship. That okay, if I do this, then I'm getting this realization. Something which is very dim in a routine devotional activity when it is performed directly to Lord Krishna. And that happens due to our sinful activities and also all the mistakes that we commit while performing the worship. So the first takeaway, if I were to take from this session, is that this golden age of 10,000 years, the glory of this age is indescribable. I mean, it's like suddenly a pauper has been given millions of dollars and he doesn't know what to do with it. Similarly, we also do not know how grand Lord Chaitanya's mercy is, and how that leap jump that we are getting, because one is speaking this on the strength of experience, that despite having a favorable attitude towards Lord Krishna's service, the amount of realization that came when Srila Prabhupada's mercy dawned upon and we understood who Lord Chaitanya is, there is no comparison. So there is high likelihood that beyond our expectation, we will perhaps someday reach this abode and attain these bodily features purely by being Kripa Siddha, on the strength of mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Panchatattva, and more than that, his devotees like Srila Prabhupada. So rather than thinking about what has been described in the translation, it is better to think that the fastest and the easiest method to get there is by surrendering more and more and more at Lord Nityananda's lotus feet. Because the sale is on and all we have to do is maximize our benefit. Let us not show our bravery in solving a tough question, going towards the path of serving Krishna directly. Let us be intelligent, because when you have this ego that no, I can directly serve Krishna, you may succeed, but you will waste a lot of time. Why suffer? Another thing is the description given in this thing thankfully does not follow a path of negation. Like Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he would always begin with na. Na tad bhasayate suryo, na shashanko, na pavakah. Or even if he is describing soul, nayanam chindanti shastrani, nayanam dahati pa. Because when something is transcendental, either you experience it directly or you experience it through negation. Lord Krishna followed the route of negation. He kept on saying, not this, not this, not this, like that. So that Arjuna understands that the 5 elements of material nature, earth, fire, water, ether, air, soul is beyond that. He just wanted Arjuna to understand. So he took this idea of negating. Then even when he is describing his own abode, he is saying something that Arjuna can relate with. Even in this description, you would see this upama of lotus, because we have nothing beyond lotus which we can relate with. So we keep saying kar kamal, mukh kamal, charan kamal, because all we have to refer to is a kamal. But when Srila Prabhupada was asked, how is it to be in Vaikuṇṭha, he did not answer. Because it can only, like I can put a rasgulla right in front of your mouth and keep on describing this is so sweet and fragrance is so good and it is so soft and it will melt in your mouth. I can only do this much. Ultimately, it is you who will have to taste it. Similarly, that's why when I read this purport, I was like, okay, they have this beautiful bodily feature, etc., etc., but how do we experience it? So one very important thing comes out of this, which is that once you get this sarupya mukti or salokya mukti or samipya mukti or sarshti, any of these 4, when they say you get opulence like God, the question arises, can a liberated living entity become equal to God? Because this is something which is a prevalent notion in outer circles. We are right now conditioned, but once we are liberated, then the Mayavadis say we are equal to. Look at our bodies, look at Krishna's bodies. Same. Four-handed, blue. We also have blue hue. He also has blue hue. So, for those of you who are interested or who go out to preach, I took a little bit of, I wouldn't use the word research, but I just did some data mining. And I'm sharing with you 4 or 5 verses from Vedanta Sutra, chapter 4, verse number 17 to 21 or 22. And what is the reason? The reason is because even ultimately Vyasadeva also, after reconciling multiple philosophies, he comes to this conclusion. I am repeating the conclusion first and would read out the verses later. Vyasadeva says, a liberated living entity may enjoy the opulence like Lord, but the right of creation, maintenance and dissolution is never given to a liberated living entity. And that distinction always exists between the Supreme Person and the liberated living entity. Which means Krishna never gives the management part of the world to anyone. It's like you are in your house, you are like this little kid who's sitting here, Achintya Chaitanya Prabhu's son, and he doesn't have to bother how the Lakshmi will come, how the grains will come, how the prasad will come. He's relaxed. And he can do anything that he wants to do in his house. He's a liberated living entity. But Prabhuji would never entrust him with running the house. So, and Madhvacharya goes on a step further. He says, liberated or conditioned, Jiva is always dependent on Ishvara. So, little bit of improvement in our conduct and we are from, because little bit improvement means showing sincerity, that's all. Ultimately, complete purification is offered by Lord, and then He takes us into, His personal abode. And there we live with Him, exchanging the rasa, in servitorship with Him. So, you may want to use this when you go out to preach. How Vyasadeva also very clearly distinguishes that the opulence may be similar, but the rights of creation, maintenance and dissolution are not granted to the liberated living beings also. So, allow me 1 minute gap and I would be able to. So, in the 4th section of Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva mentions Jagatvya paravrajam prakaranat asarnihitvacha, and the translation reads as follows. The released soul attains all lordly powers except the power of creation, etc., on account of Ishwar being the subject matter of all texts where creation, etc., are described, and the released souls not being mentioned in that connection. So, what is being said here is all the revealed scriptures, like the first canto, first chapter, first verse, Janmadiyasya, even there it is, Vyasadeva is saying, no revealed scripture says that Janmadiyasya, etc., is done by a jiva. It always says it is done by Ishwar. So therefore, I am reaching on to this conclusion that this is a prerogative of Supreme Person and it is not a function of the living entity. The question is raised whether those who by worshipping the qualified Brahman attain Brahmalok and lordly powers have limited or unlimited powers. Purva Paksh argument is there, and then the later. The opponent holds that it should be unlimited because of the scriptural texts. They can roam at will in all the worlds. To him all the gods offer worship. So it is, what is being described is the liberated living being can roam at will anywhere, and all the demigods offer worship to him. That is his status. This is mentioned in the scripture. So why is he not equal to the Supreme Person? This sutra says that the released souls attain lordly powers without the power of creating, preserving and destroying the universe. Barring this power, they get all other powers. Why? Because Ishwar is the subject matter of all the texts dealing with creation, etc., while the liberated souls are not mentioned at all in this connection. Moreover, this would lead to many Ishwaras, which may give rise to a conflict of wills with respect to creation, etc. Therefore, the powers, Therefore, the powers of the liberated souls are not absolute but limited and are dependent on the will of Ishvara. And guess what? This is Shankaracharya speaking. After teaching Mayavad to whole world, in Vedanta Sutra, this is Shankar Bhashya that I just read out. So, in the next verse, it further goes on to say, Pratyaksha upadeshaditi chetana adhikari kamandalastopte. If the powers of the released souls are limited, then like all limited things, they too will come to an end, and consequently the released souls will have to come back from Brahmaloka to this mortal world, says the opponent. The sutra refutes such a contingency on scriptural authority. Those who go to Brahmalok by the path of the gods do not return from there. Going up by that way, one reaches immortality. They no more return to this world. So, this is also being confirmed, that once we go, so we are limited even after attaining a liberated body. Point being made is that these beautiful bodily features which are being described, and this is the last part of this class, they have aligned their will cent% with the will of Krishna. Krishna bhavana bhavit. Whatever is the will of God, their will is aligned with that, not merged. And therefore, since they are 100% Krishna conscious, there is no chance, one, of their fall down, and two, they are all right being subordinate. This is happening due to the absence of false ego. This is very subtle. I will make an attempt to describe this feature. Actually, the absence of false ego is very difficult to imagine. I mean, the whole joy disappears. Because if it's not about me, what's the fun? And when you reverse it, like they do in the chapter 15, Urdhva Moolam Adhar Shakham, if you do the reverse part of it, then you see that this becomes the fundamental qualification to enter the abode of Lord Vishnu. That false ego has to turn into the right ego. And the Hridaya Granthi, which does not get penetrated, is not because of deep attachment. It is because of misidentification first and deep attachment later. For example, when Lord Brahma was beginning the creation, he created Ajnana Vrittis, which began with Tama and then which went on to Moha and Mahamoha and Tamistra and Andhatamistra. So like 5 times of nescience. So what is Tama? Tama means forgetfulness of who you are. So then what is Moha? Moha is misunderstanding who you are. So one is not knowing who I am. That's Tama, ignorance, darkness of ignorance. But Moha means thinking that which you are not, which means thinking that you are this body. That's Moha. So then what's Mahamoha? Anything which is in relation to that body, you think that is also mine. That becomes Mahamoha. So then what is Tamistra? The fear that the one that is related to me should not get lost What if I lose it? That becomes tamistra. So then what is under tamistra? The fear of death, which will then take away all my illusions. And Lord Brahma covered the living entity with these 5 layers before putting us into this place. It's only the mercy of Shukadeva Goswami that at least Brahmaji's activities got opened up here and exposed, that he is the one. And actually Lord Brahma felt embarrassed after doing this. He said, why is Krishna putting me through this? These living entities, I am covering them with the layers of nescience, and that's not correct. So the point is, when we start unlayering, beginning from tamistra, which means we stop this fear by figuring out the right identity, that we are this soul, not this body. Then gradually these facilities we attain without any bodily effort. If you change your consciousness up to the level of consciousness of demigods, you will get the body of demigods, plain and simple. But if you think you can build a very fine state-of-the-art palace, even that will not match Lord Indra's abode. You have to change consciousness to receive that facility. But due to false ego, if you say, no, I will show you, nothing. He will always be superior because our consciousness level is low. So the whole game is the status and scale of consciousness. And the most amazing gift given by Lord Chaitanya is these holy names. They are like bungee jumping. They elevate the consciousness. And not only do they elevate, when they are mixed with this beautiful Bhagavatam, then the Bhagavatam acts as a compass and holy names act like an aeroplane. So not only you are flying, but you are flying in the right direction. So therefore, we have the chance, Nityam Bhagavat Sevya, by reading this Bhagavat and by chanting Krishna's holy names, 1, regularly, 2, attentively, 3, without offenses. Not just chanting the holy names, the 3 things more. Regularly, attentively, and without offenses. Then Prabhupada confirms that the subtle body dissolves, which means in our chit, whatever tendencies are there, they dissolve, and only Shuddha Sattva, the divine thoughts, remain. Mind remains, intellect remains, but the thoughts that pass through the plane of mind, they are only pure thoughts. So the joy that the mind and the intellect derive, that joy is also divine, transcendental joy. And that cleansing, Chetodarpan, Marjanam, that happens because Mahaprabhu gave us these holy names to do it. I would pause here. If you have any correction or any comment to make, please make, else. What time is it, Prabhu? Okay. Yes, Mataji.
Correction,
Yes.
if you don't mind. When you said the thoughts are purified, thoughts going through the mind and intellect, actually it is the mind and intelligence that become purified. That's how it is. It's not just the thoughts, it's the faculties themselves become purified in order to conceive the transcendence. I want to also congratulate you on expressing the 5 near signs very wonderfully, because the spirit soul is so effulgent, it cannot remain in ignorance or in the material world unless it's covered. So that is the reason why it's covered, because it's full of knowledge, bliss,
Yes.
right? And so you explained it very nicely. So
Thank you.
do not underestimate your ability in giving this lecture. It's so beautiful the way you described. It's so nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And one more small comment is, Lord Chaitanya mentioned that why do I still have this body if I am free for false ego? So you can see even Lord Chaitanya mentioned that having this body is a symptom of false ego.
Yes.
So I don't know how correct I am in that.
No, you did. The purification part, actually, Lord Krishna confirms it in Srimad Bhagavatam in 11th canto to Uddhav, when he asked that some people say that there are 25 elements of material nature, some 22, some say 18, some 13, some 5, and he confirms back that none of them is incorrect. They're all correct, because sometimes they group certain things, sometimes they elaborate. So what happens in our case is that, like Prabhupada mentions, mind's function as thinking, feeling and willing, and the function of intellect as discriminating agency. However, when the definition of chit is given, chit is defined as the storehouse of tendencies. So when we distinguish the two, the chit to the mind, taking mind as the plane or the screen of the TV, and chit as all the set of channels which are there, in that context, when Lord Chaitanya says cheto darpan marjanam, then it is those material tendencies which gets washed away. Now what happens is, if you take a sponge, put it into water and take it out, it's very heavy when you take that out, because it has soaked the water. Similarly, when the mind is absorbed in mode of passion, then it is agitated. When it is in the mode of ignorance, then it takes completely opposite thinking process. When you put it in somewhat relative satogun, then it is lighter. So mind is reflecting what is popping up from the platform of the chitta. And in that context, when cheto darpan marjanam happens, then compassion, generosity, ability to tolerate for the welfare of others, only these thoughts remain, along with very sweet thoughts of our intimate relationships with devotees, holy name, dham, prasad and Krishna himself. So when only those thoughts pass via this organ called mind, it relishes, because that's what it enjoys. Like eyes would relish Krishna's beauty, ears would relish hearing his pastimes. So actually what is happening is, from the region of the heart, some 88,000 thoughts are popping up on the plane of the mind, which is in the middle of the eyebrows, and it is only reflecting. So when the jiva identifies as the body, then the jiva acts like a robot and it says, I am hungry, I am feeling fearful. But actually when you distance yourself, then you say, I am having a thought of fear, I am having a thought of hunger. Like once I was with His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, and he received a call from a disciple who was inquiring about his health. And Guru Maharaj, when he asked, how are you? So Guru Maharaj said, I am fine. So on the other side, that fellow became a little confused. When you call somebody for his well-being, you would want to hear some details. And when he heard, I am fine, he was little this thing. So Guru Maharaj said, body will recover, I am fine. So he distinguished. When he got that stroke, and after that he started attempting to walk, he would loudly say, I am not this body, I am not this body. Because in chit, if there are material thoughts popping up, then mind will have effect of those material thoughts in terms of happiness and distress. When the mind will only relay divinity, then the mind will be serene and it will be completely joyful, because that's the nature of the organ. Then it is impossible for the intellect to get distressed by what is happening due to material thoughts. So the whole idea is cheto darpan marjanam 1, and later on more and more auspicious thoughts entering into the region of the chitta. So pure chitta makes us divine, and impure chitta, so the organs get purified because the thoughts coming to the organ, they are pure. So that is how this structure should be understood. Yeah? Yes, Mataji, please. Prabhu, I
Thank
don't
you.
have a... Okay, I'll...
Haribol?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. My understanding is that the eyes are just instruments.
Yes.
You are seeing. It is not the eyes that are seeing. It's not the ears that are hearing. We, the soul, is hearing, seeing through the instrument of the eyes and the ears. That's just my understanding.
Yes, Mataji, it is absolutely correct understanding. But what happens is, there is a TV set, then there is a plug you put in the socket. Now imagine the screen of the TV set as the mind, and the volume and the contrast, brightness, buttons which are there. So they are also all organs in themselves. But the whole game is being run by the electricity. If you take the socket, the plug out, the whole thing becomes of no use. It's the consciousness which is making it happen. But the selection of what you watch is entirely on you. In Vaikuṇṭha, even the eyes are Chinmay, even the ears are Chinmay, and every organ is Chinmay. It's like what Mataji was mentioning, that the mind is also Chinmay, and because there is no difference then between the internal or external body. Every pore is equally Chinmay. Chinmay means fully, not even vibrant, receptive. And therefore, that realm of existence cannot be imagined except that it has to be trusted on the strength of the Shastra. That's why Acharya says, let the eyes drink the nectar of Lord's beauty. Actually, it is being done by that spark only. Eyes is just an organ, as you are mentioning. But in Vaikuṇṭha, they say, even that becomes Chinmay. The whole thing is completely vibrant. So, that's the thing. I think it's time now. Thank you so much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Guru Maharaj ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.